Hey everyone, welcome to a new DeFi weekly video. So I'm trying out a new format where I have me in the bottom right of your screen, and then I can use the screen for recording or showing things like an app, but also one second, cursor. But also the classic drawings which you know and are familiar with. So that being said, let's get right into this one. So of course, it's about Pickle Finance, the tagline being off peg bad, on peg good. We'll delve into what that means by kind of describing how Pickle works at a high level, how most of their strategies generally work. I'm not outlining how a specific one does, but the conceptual idea. How the ownership is controlled / set, and some risks associated with the project as well. Actually, now that I think about it, I should probably reverse these two. So anyway, let's jump straight into it. Pickle Finance, despite it having a pickle as the logo, is actually a pretty unique project. It's not a fork or not a copy of another project which adds no value. So the whole reason is that you have all these stable coins within the ecosystem, right? So you've got DAI, you've got USDC, USDT, and whatever else. Well, these are the three main ones. And the problem is that these usually keep trading at slightly different prices, right? So you might have so you might have DAI trading at $1.01, you might have USDC at 99 cents, you might have USDT at 98 cents, and technically all of these should be worth $1 exactly, but they're off peg. So the whole kind of concept around Pickle Finance is that you get pickles for bringing the pegs back to balance. And the way that you do that is pretty simple in the way they've designed it. So you've got these Uniswap pools, which you have like a bunch of Uniswap pools. I think, let me just make sure I have it 100% correct. DAI and the P jar. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So you have all these pickle jars over here, which are paired with ETH, or you have these Uniswap LP tokens. So ETH DAI, ETH USDC, and ETH USDT, and these are your LP shares or liquidity provision shares, which you get when you deposit these two assets into Uniswap, and this is the asset you get back. So the idea is you get these shares, right? And you stake them inside Pickle. And depending on what the peg is, you'll get a different number of pickles. So for example, if DAI is more off peg, DAI ETH will get more pickles. And similarly, the same happens with USDC or USDT. So the main question which you're probably thinking is that, okay, so I'm doing this thing, but what makes Pickle itself valuable, right? Because sure, you can give out pickles for doing this action, but just because I'm earning pickles, like Pickle still has to be worth something. And that's where I guess the second leg of this comes on, which is the strategies. So the whole idea of these strategies are that you have some stable coin here and you deposit it inside some contract, and then the contract will find opportunities on chain to give you some sort of return. Now, that's a very, very simplified explanation. If we go into a bit more detail, what actually happens is you have some sort of stablecoin or two kinds of stablecoins, so stablecoin 1 and stablecoin 2, and you'll deposit them inside a particular strategy. Now this strategy will then, in some cases, it's maybe some sort of like yield farming incentive. So let's say the strategy is pointed at Curve. So Curve will then give you a bunch of Curve tokens for providing this liquidity, and in turn those Curve tokens are sold, and it then gets those sold tokens to buy more of these to then deposit back into the strategy and earn more Curve tokens. So you do have recursion going on here, but what that means is you have real cash flows that can be delivered to Pickle holders at the end of the day. So if we like quickly jump to the blog, they've got, this is like one of their Pickle jars and the diagram they have for it. So you essentially deposit these S-Curve tokens, and it then adds liquidity to a Curve pool, which gives you more S-Curve, and then you get those S-Curves to deposit back inside the Pickle jar, and it goes round and round. The other strategy which they've launched recently is the Pickle Jar 0.88, and the way that this one works is essentially you get some dye, which you give to Pickle, of course, and then the dye goes to Compound, and via Compound it borrows some dye to then essentially recursively lend on Compound and then borrow again. So yeah, you deposit dye inside the P jar, it supplies the dye to Compound, and then it borrows more dye from Compound, and it keeps repeating that until the maximum amount of leverage is reached. And the reason why this works is because dye has, I'm pretty sure, like a hard-coded factor in the Compound contracts, meaning the liquidation risk is very, very tiny. So even though you're borrowing, since you're borrowing and lending something that's worth $1, the fluctuations are very, very tiny. So if you want to know more about how it works and some of the more detailed numbers, you can read them on this blog post itself. So this, like, what they've really summarized where in this post is that the maximum amount of leverage you can get is 4. So every 1 die can be farmed with 4 die. And the really nice bit is that this is essentially completely automated. And of course, a lot of these are live and they're still being tested in the wild, but hopefully it gives you an overview of what are some of the things that are going on with Pickle. Now, I think one thing that's worth touching upon is the risks associated. Get this in red. So yeah, like a few risks off the top is A, the team is anonymous, so we don't really know who the actual people behind it are. The second thing, apart from the team being anonymous, is the fact that some of the jars and strategies are unaudited. The team is working on getting an audit as we speak, but there is unaudited code. And I think the third point is that we still don't know if Pickle itself will be valuable or not, right? Like, just because you earn Pickles for these things, does it make it valuable? And we don't really know that, but it's worth knowing that these are some of the things that you're getting into if you choose to be more involved with the project itself. And I think touching on that is how ownership is controlled / set. So this relates to the first point where the team is anonymous. The way that the ownership structure of the contracts works is, let's say you have some contract here which stores user funds. The owner of this contract is a time lock, which means that there's a 12-hour or in some cases a 24-hour delay before any transaction can be made to update a contract which holds the money itself. And then, as an additional measure, the time lock is owned by a multi-sig. And this multi-signature is a 2 of 4 wallet, I guess you could say, or contract, meaning that you need 2 people on the Pickle team to execute a transaction to send to the time lock, which will then execute or make any changes after the specified delay. And it's quite nice because it means that you don't necessarily have to trust the team, because everyone can see any changes being made to the contract. Like, the chance of a rug pull is diminished because everything is out in public. So yeah, hopefully this was useful. As a disclosure, I do hold Pickle, and it's a project which I am excited about, but please don't take that as any sort of investment advice or reasons why you should get fully into it. I like to make videos based on things I find interesting and cool, and Pickle so happens to be one of them. I think that's about it. Let me know what you think about this new format and structure for the videos, by the way, and excited to produce some more things in the coming days. See ya.